I feel the hurt and the pain of transgender people because they identify with what the world has built up to hate. In this very continent we are in, we can't have this conversation anywhere else besides this country. But I will never understand the depth of their struggle. That's why it's hard for me to have informed opinions. Within the community, there's hate that is spewed on them as well. Us having a transgender category is a new marginalization.
Nkululeko on Cultr.
Hello, Lungelo.
Hey, Nkululeko, unjani?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's been a while.
Yeah, this month of June is dedicated to you in many ways.
Why?
Because you're young and gay.
Now we're under 35, so fine.
Yeah.
Don't know the gay parts.
Yeah, you see, like, it's not dedicated to me in the sense that
we yet to know to have fluidity in sexuality.
I know. My favorite musicians are gay. And I'm heartbroken by that, but I can't stop the fact that I like them in the first place. So in 2012, Frank Ocean...
it's been 10 years since he made the announcement.
Yeah.
Time flies.
On Tumblr, he wrote a statement about how he fell in love with a boy the first time.
Tumblr. I remember Tumblr, yes.
So I remember reading that. I was working in a call center.
Did he have that album that was orange? I think it was that one.
It was Channel Orange.
Channel Orange.
Channel Orange is a 2013 album. Mm-hmm. So I think at that time he had mixtapes out.
Okay.
It's called Nostalgia Ultra. There's an orange car. I don't know cars, but there's an orange. It looks like a Vora or something.
Yeah.
On the album cover, on Nostalgia Ultra, if I'm not mistaken. So at the time we had known him as someone who worked with Kanye West and Jay-Z on Watch the Throne album. So he wrote that. Anyways, I'm prolonging this. When he wrote that, I was almost in tears.
Okay.
And it's weird because it was not out of hate. I'm like, damn, man, you're my favorite artist in the world. Him and Kanye West at the time, they were my favorite artists. And I was like, damn, he's gay now. What does it mean about his love songs? If his love songs are meant for other men, should I follow them? And I was so confused at the time. But 10 years later, his next album, so he released 2 albums. Blonde and Channel Orange, and I've been a fan. Like I've listened to almost every song and I know almost every lyric of his. So it didn't matter. Like I didn't die because my favorite artist is a gay person.
But from 10 years ago, you were a different person. Also, let's admit that. Surely your views and opinions and
I've never been
education.
I've never been a bigoted person ever because I come from a place where if you're an underdog, you get abused. Mm-hmm. If they know that your mother drinks alcohol and you don't have a father and you don't have any guardian to stand up for you, they abuse you. Yeah. So even from that perspective, because I was that kid who...
You understood Amandaba marginalized.
Yes, marginalized people. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to put it. That I've always like... so someone would leave their house and leave their kid in their house and find me and send me like 4 kilometers away. And then I have to 4 kilometers and come back with whatever they're sending me with, their money and whatever the they making me run around with, you know. So I've always and I always felt that that's unfair, you know. So even when I was a kid, I've never had a time where I was bigoted, other than what comes part and parcel of hip hop in the 90s, where you could use the word faggot because Eminem is using it and it's funny. Yeah, you're gay, you're a sissy, or we morphy because you're crying. Yeah. But I never felt that came with hatred. Sure. It was in the lexicon because it was acceptable at the time. But when Frank Ocean announced that, I was like, damn, what the f-? Yeah, but over the presiding 10 years, which is now, I haven't changed. Like, I still love that guy. And he financed a record label for out of 20 million, and then he went away. And I was like, that's boss. Like, that's the most gangster thing you can ever do, although you're gay as well. There's something I want to talk to you about regarding being gay and women. I've always made the observation that gay men and women have a very peculiar relationship with one another. From my observation, limited to where I come from, it always seemed as though gay men have to somehow entertain women by telling them gory stories about their bedroom activities. You always have to be a caricature of yourself. Hi, show me one day for whatever the fact. Like you always have to say some weird shit about yourself so that women can be entertained. You are a different type of gay person because we get along easily because you look like me, you sound like me, although
Yeah.
you dress better than me, obviously. But like we more masculine energy men type of thing. But I've looked at the feminine guys who are gays, and I always felt as though they feel like they have to act and be puppets for women. And women really love these stories because I think for them, in my observation, it always looked like, what ridiculous is this guy going to tell us about what he does in the bedroom that we don't have the spindi to do? This guy poured me candle wax and he wrapped me around in a rope. Whatever the gay guy is saying, I've always felt that they like gay niggas because they find them entertaining, because they say sexual shit about themselves, something like that.
True. One thing about, for the longest time, gay men were always represented by feminine presenting men only. And that was caused by the fact that if you're feminine presenting, but you were born into a system where you have the genitals of what a person is gender prescribed as a man by birth, and you are now feminine in your teenagehood or adulthood, it's obvious to society. So it wasn't that they were choosing to be billboards for gay people in total. It's because you're in a dress, but people thought you are a man, right? So by virtue of that, then people thought that's what gayness looks like, right? Because those people who are feminine, they didn't have a choice. That's just how they present themselves. Now, as you're saying, there are people like me who are able to speak about their sexuality because we are more open in society and we are not scared to stand for our sexuality and still stand in our masculinity. That's okay. But what happened is, in the woman part, is that I think a lot of women had this perception that gay men whom were represented by feminine gay men were after their men. Like,
there is that as well.
There's that perception. Oguti, you are after our boyfriends, or you are finishing our boyfriends.
Well, there is some truth to that. I'm not saying that that's generally entirely true, but there is. So what I learned, there's a man called Jacob Lebisi. I worked with him at the call center. It was the first time I had ever experienced an older gay man in my life, because I had never seen a gay man who was in his 40s. And I learned a few things, so I'm very curious, and I asked him certain things about being gay. I said, I thought that feminine gay men are in the market for other feminine gay men. And what I learned over time of speaking to him, and is a brilliant man. You know, he has an alcohol problem. Like he blacks out every time he drinks, loses his phone. He never has a phone. But I take time to like listen to this guy. What's this guy's story? He had come from Pretoria, but I'm from Cape Town, so we met in Cape Town. He went to the University of Cape Town. For the first time, he sees the bright lights of Cape Town, and he sees gay clubs for the first time in his life. And here, back home,
that liberation doesn't exist.
They don't accept him. So because of that, they don't accept him, and coincidentally, he has to go to university. So he leaves metaphorically and literally. He leaves not to come back because his father doesn't want that. He's beating him and stuff like that. When he gets to Cape Town, he sees a different side of expression of gayness, for example. And he starts drinking and he flunks his course. I think he was doing law degree. He has impeccable English. He's very smart, actually. And anyways, so I'm trying to give background to how I get to know him. So I'm working at a call center. I'm 20 years old. I drop out of university and I meet him. And so I'm saying there's a degree of truth to the idea of women being insecure about gay men, especially feminine gay men, because I said at the time I was 20, I said, I thought feminine gay men in their market, they're just looking for other feminine gay men so that you can have gay men who are women, in a sense, dating each other. I didn't know that. And he said to me, explained, like, there are different varieties of this thing, but predominantly what the person who would call themselves bottom, which is the more feminine gay person, they want a straight guy like myself, for example. And I was like, no, but I'm not gay. So why would he want me because I'm not gay, for example? And he explained, no, like there is an appeal to have, because if he's a feminine person, if Jacob is feminine, then they want a man who's a man. Like they don't want another gay person who acts and sounds and talks like a girl or a woman, for example. So there is some truth to that. It's not encompassing all gay people.
I'm glad you qualified your statement by saying some truth, because, for example, I can sit here and you have no idea what happens in my bedroom, right?
Absolutely.
Because once again, we have evolved and we've also realized that it's not because a person is feminine presenting that they are looking for a masculine presenting partner. So nowadays you find feminine presenting gay men in a relationship, or both masculine presenting gay men in a relationship.
Yeah.
And they go to the bedroom and at the look of an eye, you as a person who doesn't know what they do, you might have your presumptions, but you could be completely wrong. So as you're saying, things have completely changed. People are now more honest with their feelings. They are less prejudiced, even themselves. The internal homophobia is less. People are less prejudiced to say, even as a masculine presenting man who goes to the gym, has a six-pack and weighs 95 kgs because I can pick up the heaviest nzimbi at the gym, I can still be a bottom. Even though I tick all these masculinity boxes.
On the face of it, you look masculine.
On the face of it,
still be a bottom.
Absolutely. So that's where it came from. I want to go back to the woman.
So with the women on that point, they may have been noticing that a feminine presenting man
goes after their straight man.
It's like, so they will be in a tavern.
So
or
isn't the problem the straight man then? Because obviously he's not straight.
You see, that's the thing. Like, for me, I've always found it a trip.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I said to Jacob. I was like, yo, but I'm straight. So why do you want me? I'm a straight man. Like, I'm actively not participating in this community of yours. So why would you want me? Do you want me so that I can be gay forever, or you want me because I also sleep with them? For me, I couldn't understand it, because it means I'm gay then.
So most likely that man is bi-curious, right? So since we're making this a June month,
well, eventually we'll talk about other things.
Yeah, no. So it's important, but bi-curious just means that a person is curious sexually, but they do not identify as gay, queer, bisexual. They're just curious. So what would it feel like if I were to sleep with a guy?
I don't like guys.
There are people who are curious.
I think men are disgusting. I think women are beautiful. Women have breasts, bro. Like, they have breasts and they have ass, and they have. Oh, sorry, let me not appear as if I'm sexualizing women, but women are beautiful. Like, no, but guys, like, have you seen me? Like, I'm disgusting. Me, I dress. I don't like showering. I always complain to Cultr that
I have to shower today
because we have a shoot. Like, I find men disgusting. Of course, there are other men who take better care of themselves than me. But please go on. I want to explore that relationship. You were explaining why there maybe is some antagonization between men and women.
Yes.
Gay men and women.
It still exists, by the way. But more so nowadays, it's because a lot of gay men are taking back their power, because as a heterosexual woman, life is still a bit kinder than a queer person. I know both people have their injustices.
Yeah.
Women have injustices, queer people have injustices. But as a woman who identifies as heterosexual, and especially if you go through by the book in life and you get married and you have kids, and then you go and have a gay best friend, he's always most likely an accessory.
Yeah.
It affirms your husband, because you have a friend who will never touch you. It affirms your husband that you've got a feminine friend who's a man. So this person will never say things to you that, you know how other female friends to friends can tell them about things about their husband, or even go for their husband.
Yeah.
So women have many reasons of keeping this gay man as an accessory.
But I think it's still, I get that aspect.
Yeah, and gay men don't want that anymore.
Yeah, and I think it's a curious relationship, because I think it might be a limited experience, granted, but I think in order so gay men automatically will not be accepted by a straight men in general in society.
Yes, we know
so I've
that.
always thought that, they found an ally in the woman. But in order for them to maintain that relationship, because I don't understand, why should you always be like the joker in that group? Why should you always be like the one who gets drunk the most? And why should you always be the one who's the most promiscuous? And why is it that you should share the most gory details about yourself, whereas the women themselves are promiscuous, but they never say anything about the they do. Because when I worked, the call center environment is like 200 people in one place, and it's always the gay guys that will say some shit about themselves. Show me, whatever. They met a white person who them is a rich white guy, and this is a young, good-looking 21-year-old gay young man, right? And they are unafraid to express that. I think they're incentivized to talk about those things.
Yes.
Women get by guys who have money, who are way older than them, but it's not something that they've made it acceptable to go around telling other people. I think there's something to be investigated about that relationship. That why is it that you want us to always, you want us to always entertain you? Why should we always entertain you? And the only way we can entertain you is by not being men, like being anything other than being men, and try to be women. And when we try to be women, we
still not enough.
You know what I'm saying? We have to be more promiscuous than you. We have to be more sexually exploring than you. I always thought that was a strange relationship.
It continues to be strange. You make a fair point. I in fact, I'd say 2 months ago, I was with most of my friends. I don't know, maybe it's just how I grew up, being a boy from KZN, is that most of my friends are masculine presenting. So we were with somebody who's very famous, which I won't say their name. She's a woman and she's on a big show. And so we're sitting down, we're having some drinks, and she says, "Okay, guys, so now that all of you guys are gay here, so who gets penetrated here? Who?" She's never seen, I don't think she's ever been put in her place by people so quickly. Because all of us were professionals, that's not how...
You are a different representation
we are a completely different representation. No, we put her in a place there and then. Because
you can imagine from her experience, the gay guys she's met,
they all do that.
Who are happily expressing what they do in bed and stuff like that. It's like you have to be a joker in that group. There's something else I wanna before we move on to other things about this. Do you believe? Well, you may have to think about this, but when I look at the transgender conversation, it's a conversation that I think needs to be had. It's very important, but I think when I observe it, I don't have fully formulated views about it, but when I observe it on the face of it, there is an element of taking spaces that were ordinarily occupied by women. What I mean by that, for example, is that there's a push, although it's not a South African problem, it's an international problem. There's a push, for example, to have in awards shows to have genderless categories, so that you don't have best actress and best actor, best supporting actress and best supporting actor. And in my analyzing of the situation, I think that because men predominantly are the creators in certain industries, then you may not have women winning, for example, because the transgender wants to fit in somewhere in those categories.
So the genderless, the gender male, best female actor was formed so that women can be recognized. It's sort of affirmative action.
Absolutely, because women have always had to catch up.
Sure.
If they voted last, and other that we can mention, if it's not there, the best female or the best actress, women would not win best actor, because predominantly stories are written by males and they are seen through the prism of males. Even J.K. Rowling is a woman, but she wrote Harry Potter. And Harry Potter in that story is a young boy, is a male who's steering the thing throughout. He's a star of the show, Daniel Radcliffe. So even J.K. Rowling did not have a book that is a bestseller, which maybe she may have now, but in that the one that sold the most is the one where she's representing a point of view of a young boy, for example. It would be lesser of women winning and gaining accolades, because then we would be decimating the idea of actress or even being female. I think there's something to maybe transgenders introducing a conversation about having a transgender category, for example. I don't want to narrow this conversation to that only. I'm just making an observation that for as long as there will always be an antagonism with the transgender and the woman, for as long as the things that women fought for and eventually won are now being decimated. For example, there was another question where they were asking, so given that America has never had a female president, what if that president is transgender? It means that we have to, in a politically correct world, we're going to have to say that's the first woman president. But then biologically, it still means that there's never been a woman who's ever been a president, like a person who was born as a female who's ever been a president. If for the first time, let's say in the next elections, the person who wins is a transgender woman.
I hear you. I hear
something like that. So all of that leads into a natural antagonization that women feel like their spaces are being taken over by transgender males. So I say that you're not detecting any hate in my heart.
I absolutely am not.
But it's a conversation to be had.
Absolutely. As a man who has dug deep, and I realized and made complete peace that I identify as gay, I understand how it feels like to identify with something that's against the system. And I feel like I feel the hurt and the pain of transgender people because they identify with what the world has built up to hate. Like, the world hates them, unfortunately. The world hates gay people as well. Still, very much so. In this very continent we are in, we can't have this conversation anywhere else besides this country.
Yeah, there are many countries where it's illegal to.
Yeah. So, but I will never understand the depth of their struggle. That's why it's hard for me to have informed opinions. I feel like even within the queer community, transgender people have said, yes, we actually don't want to be part of the rainbow anymore because gay people and lesbians don't treat us well, even within the community. Within the community, there's hate that is spewed on them as well. So what I'm trying to say is the level of struggle and pain they face could inform why they are saying, let's not even have transgender category, let's have genderless. Because us having a transgender category is a new marginalization that people will give us. So we'll say, you're not a man, you're not a woman, you're a transgender. Do you know what I mean? Like, we adding a third.
I see that logic, but I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
I see that logic of, okay, you are now marginalizing it, but I think I'm marginalizing us. But I think that there's merit to the idea that if you want toilets, for example, you may have to just introduce practically, and especially if there is a demand for it. Like, there's a lot of transgender men and women who are unable to use the male and female, then you may have just to introduce a third toilet, which is almost the equivalent of introducing at the Summer Awards a third category. Mm-hmm. If, for example, and this is the thing that we fight about a lot, is that if we, based on a needs analysis, we say, okay, there are enough musicians who are identifying as this category, just like we did away with the best kwaito because people stopped creating kwaito. Maybe because there are more and more transgender identifying musicians, for example, then we create a
I love
category.
that perspective. You're saying let's have a needs analysis.
Needs analysis, yeah.
Because if there are only 5 Dom artists, then why have a category
then you
at the Grammys?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
You will always have one winner.
Yeah.
There's no relevance to it. But if there's even with acting, for example, if there's a growing number of transgender men and women who are actors and actresses, then we may ask the SAFTAs to introduce a category that caters to that, because there's a need for it at the time. Not because one person wants it, because they want to win. They want to be the only person that wins as well. But then where I'm coming from with this question is about the women. So women will always be uncomfortable with the idea that, so I have to run against you, for example, but you were born as a male and you have natural advantages because you were born as a male. You grew up, you went through puberty as a male. Your punch is stronger than me. Your fists are stronger than me. So there will always be that natural antagonization until a conversation is started where it's like, how about in a single category? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing discriminatory about that. It's a single, because if there's something discriminatory clearly about integrating transgender women in women's sport, because clearly they are stronger, they are better. When they are, for example, world number 400 in the male category, they suddenly become world number 1 in the female category, which clearly then says that there are inherent advantages. Anyways, I don't have any dog in this fight, but I just want to introduce it to the audience.
I think we both don't.
Yeah.
I may be a little bit closer because of the queer element, but as I said it, even within the queer community, there's a lot of politics. But I love your perspective towards the needs analysis, because it even brings it in just anything in life where the reason we have triple BEE and there's
Absolutely.
other parties that hate it is because they'll keep on saying, no, people must be won on merit. Okay, so what do you mean merit when
when you've had a 100-year advantage?
When you have a 100-year advantage, when the people who only form 4% of the population own 90% of the means of industry. So no, like let's stop being stupid as people.
Yeah.
If transgender people are saying, I want to be accepted, I want to sit in a boardroom presenting as a transgender person, even if there is 10 people in a boardroom, and in terms of the scale of number of transgender people in the country, we are only 2 of the proportion. They are saying, let the 2 be there. Because right now, the 2 isn't there. Am I making more sense?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But there will always be pushback. I think
there will always
that's
be
why
pushback.
I'm actually just juxtaposing that with the women part.
Yeah.
Because it's the same fight that women have been fighting. Like the being included in boardrooms. It's
so why are the women hating if they understand the fight?
Well, the way that they're seeing it is that
you're coming for our seats.
You guys are men, and we're fighting against a system that has been led by men against us as women. You guys are men, and it's like we're playing cards, and you have one card that is special that can make you win the game. Boom.
I hear you.
Yeah, but where in the last 70 years we've been building up as women. We voted last. We entered the workplace last because we had to give birth and be housewives. Eventually, because women will not see this as anything other than men becoming women. You see, so you are the guys that we've been antagonizing against, and all of a sudden, just as we are being introduced to the table, just one seat, and now we have to share that seat with you, for example, and we know that you are inherently a man. So I think those are the 2 groups who are always going to be antagonistic with one another, insofar as even the category, like the athletics at schools, under 14, these are girls and these are boys and they're running, but then suddenly one of the boys identifying as trans, and then they have to move on to the other side of the girls. Those young girls will feel aggrieved when they're running, like against, and then he wins. Yeah, but she wins. Effectively, she's a woman now that she's identifying. Yeah, but so there will always be like, with those 2 groups, there will always be an antagonization because they feel as though they're fighting for the same space.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting though, how people get it, like in terms of as a discussion point. Which is like we're just discussing it. It's an interesting topic to discuss though.
And it's at a human level, I really hope we become more open to discussing it in a manner that people understand that men, women, transgender women, all have their insecurities and they are valid. And let's meet each other at a point where we find each other with our insecurities, because I'm not hating on you by saying, hi, you taking my spot. Nami, it's something, as you're saying, I've been fighting for 70 years. Yeah. And now suya figure, and I feel like you're taking my spot. That's just at a human level. People feel like that when
naturally.
Don't take it as if I'm fighting you completely as a community. It's not always the case. We are just human, and we need to find each other.
Just the last one on the sexuality point. Why do you feel, without mentioning any names, why do you feel as though there is still a necessity for musicians and actors, particularly the male ones, to conceal their sexuality? Because I don't get it. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen to you if you hide the fact that you are a gay person? If you're a musician, maybe in politics it's more consequential because people might not vote for you. Maybe even with music, it could be consequential because people might not listen to it. But I mean, great music is great music. Like, a song will hit you like Shine and Bam.
Unfortunately, Nkululeko, people love celebrities more than products.
Oh, yeah.
People love celebrities more than products. In this country, actually, it's not just a country thing. It's a westernized populations thing. We're a westernized population in South Africa. It's the USA culture we've adopted. We've brought it to South Africa. We've made people celebrities. By the way, we've made them super famous. And they have to fit a certain mold. So you can bring out the best products. Many celebrities we know, especially those who sing love music. Oh my gosh, women would be hurt. You're singing Afro pop, but you are dating men. Women are not going to take that.
Yeah, that's strange though.
Women are just not going to take that.
I remember with people like Luther Vandross, there's always been like this suspicion that he probably was gay. But at the time, it was very difficult for him to come out because then it changes the meaning of the words, the lyrics in your song.
Yeah.
Although, strangely and stupidly, of course, because we are people who just follow whoever, most of those songs were not written by those guys.
Yes,
in the first place. So
yes.
their "Love You Baby" was not "Love You Baby" from them. It was from the songwriter. Anyways, whatever situation that the songwriter is describing, it was never really the musician.
And also, even in corporate spaces, as a queer man, you must work so much more harder so that even the slight bit of marginalization or ukuthi umuntu akubukele phansi by virtue of your sexuality, if you are over accomplished, then they can't touch you. Right? That's why no one has ever touched Somizi in this industry, and he continues to be the most booked entertainer in the country. Because why? He's worked his way out of being marginalized.
Isn't the reverse true? The suspicion that he is being put in our faces because there's an agenda to spread the gay agenda to the nation. So that's a counter conspiracy theory.
I actually disagree.
Do you think that
because for the
do
longest
you think
time,
that is dope? Like, do you think other than the hard work? Because I think to a certain point, most of us are hard workers.
Yes.
Your gardener is your hard worker, but is the lowest paid employee ever in his life. It will make the least amount of money ever in his lifetime. But is your gardener and he works very hard. Other than the hard work, do you think it's dope as a? I think it's entertaining to people who find that entertaining. I think women are amused by gay men. People who look like and sound like they're trying to be women. I still go back to this point, but I don't want to expand too much on it. But on Somizi, do you think that dude is talented? Like on radio, he's talented. In music, clearly he's not, but he's made music. Have you heard his songs?
I think he's talented as an entertainer. I don't want to break it apart.
Yeah.
He's been able to package the whole thing so that it works as a product. Hence the numbers. Usomizi can go off, disappear for 6 months, come back, launch a show, and it will do well.
I think women are amused by gay men. I'll always go back to this. I think women.
I think people, the Somizi brand. I disagree with you strongly.
Yeah, that's cool.
The Somizi brand is strong. It's because of the work that has been put in over the past 30, 40 years.
Is it not because so?
There are other many feminine gay men in the industry who are not doing well.
You will tend to notice them though. Like,
yeah,
I knew Buji even though I was not following his thing because I don't watch TV. Somizi Buji, I don't know who else is openly gay that I can think of. Mushandiki as well is doing well. So there's when you programming people, like when you similar to music. Hip hop music now is trash mostly, but these kids really like it because they hear it. And it's being streamed and it's on radio. It's played like
it's
to
pushed,
a point,
pushed,
to a point where they think that they like it, but it's because it's just being played. I think that the Somizi brand, there is a conspiracy theory to say it was being pushed on our faces because if we break it down to when he went to radio the first time, I was like, if this guy really wanted to be a radio personality, he would have been a long time ago because he broke into radio late.
In his 40s.
It was after 2010. And we had long known Somizi by then. And I was like, I'm interested to find out if this can have a conversation with groups of people for 3 hours, just so you being interesting. And the first time, I think it was him and Kanyimba, and I think the show flopped. I think he's returned on Metro now.
6 days a week, by the way.
Yeah, but I've stopped listening to Metro for the past 7 or 10 years because of them taking celebrities on radio instead of talented people. I think there's merit to argue that he's not that dope, but I think he is famous, there's a difference.
Yes.
And if you were trying to push a product, you would
push it with a famous person.
Yeah, you would call him. I understand that part of the business.
So he's outworked people thinking about his sexuality because Somizi walks in to Mutu and Umama Wakono Yamaz has heard him either on radio, saw him on an ad, on a billboard, on a cooking show, somewhere. And Umama Wakona will not use the same harshness that they apply on Ulindo Lola Indlini. Hey, when I'm fine, you can't be a gay.
Yeah.
Not on Somizi. He's outworked. Yeah.
Yeah, he's earned his place in the hearts of people so that they look beyond his gayness. I think that's interesting.
Which is sad.
Which
is sad that you have to do that.
Of course. Absolutely.
As a human to be respected.
Absolutely. When I walk into a meeting and there's a bunch of white guys, Afrikaans guys, and I'm black, I remember that I'm black. I remember it all the time.
You remember it.
It just so happens that I'm not inadequate. Like I don't feel uncomfortable. And I've been in meetings where we're striking deals with old white African skies, and the one thing that will make them look past your blackness will be your brains. Like the idea that, oh, this motherfucker is introducing a very interesting concept that we can make money from.
Yeah.
And most of the time I let the product do the talking. Jason and we've cultivated a very dope media product to a point where when we go into a meeting, we no longer have to prove anything. He has never had to prove anything though, because he's white, he's tall, he's
probably
English.
well built.
Yeah. And I am black. And
Yeah.
in those meetings, the way that you earn that respect, but in a way that a white guy doesn't have to earn it. So I think across facets of society, there's this thing of, if you're black and you're a man, you're gonna have to earn your way to this space.
Funny
if you are gay,
I just want to qualify that thing of being white and sometimes not having to earn as much of your space. So I was on a project a few days ago. I went on a site visit with a client. We're there to do an audit of the entire site. We've been employed by external investors from the UK. They want a technical due diligence of this factory so that they know that they're not buying something that's going to break in the next year. Okay, fine. So now the MD comes, we're sitting in the boardroom, the MD comes, he walks in, now he's giving us the background of the story and how the business started. And the funny thing is, he's like, so I was working for this other company and then the CEO passed away. I was in finance, like at 28. I was 28, I was in finance, in the finance department. I was doing really well. The CEO passed away, so they just didn't have time to look for somebody else and they made me the CEO. He's been a managing director and CEO since 28. He's never done any other role in his life. He's just been an exec. And he's in his 50s now. And I was like, that level of privilege, my goodness. It took you 4 or 5 years to become a CEO in an industry.
Yeah, you didn't have to earn it. Or anything.
You didn't have to earn
it.
It's because you were in the vicinity.
You just had to be.
You just had to be there. Yeah, you just had to be there.
That's what's the point that I think Celeste Ntuli or anyone was making on a very viral video years ago. We've never seen white interns. Like white kids don't become interns. Eventually, they just become CEOs. But I now am at a point that I think you will be as well. When you have your own company, or if maybe you've seen it as well with the spaces that you enter. I'm at a point, and I say this to people now, that white people are not going to build companies so that they can be led by you. It doesn't make sense.
They build for their family members, like any other person.
Even my child, like my daughter, I'm like, we've had this conversation with her, even though she doesn't really have that comprehension. I'm like, bruh, I want you to just learn how to read and write because you want to be a member of any of my companies.
Yes.
Yeah, because in 10 years' time, I'll probably have 4 or 5 companies. Hopefully, they make millions per year. So I would not be building that so that I can employ a white guy.
I'll know you relate to this. Who's the CEO of Amazulu?
Yeah. The daughter,
you know,
the
you can relate to that.
Zungu,
Umlande America waqeda ama MBA wathi buya kusuzo run club.
It makes sense.
I Gabi, but she's never run a club before.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like it's because they've industrialized themselves. They've gained an advantage over time to industrialize and be incentivized by the apartheid government in many instances to run companies, to start companies. And with those companies, naturally, they will have white people. And it's strange. In some of these companies, you're in a meeting and you're presenting something. You want to work together. And you realize this CEO and the COO are brothers-in-law.
Yeah.
It happens like...
Yes.
The other one is like a brother of this other one. And the culture shock has gone out of me as I grew into this thing. And I was like, oh, okay. No, it makes sense, actually. It's not right or wrong. It makes sense that in your own company, in my company, I don't want my daughter to get instructions from other people so that they get before they get in position. No. So she will be part of my company.
Yeah.
And then whoever we need as employees, then we'll get those people. So I think if we industrialize as black people, we'll start running companies, we'll see less and less of this thing needing to prove yourself and shit like that. Can I move on to social media?
Sure.
You're doing really well on social media.
The show is doing well. I've not. I think the last time when last did we have a chat?
November, December.
December. I'm not anymore. And it's been intentional. I think it's a shift I'm going through. I don't want social media anymore.
Me too.
I don't want it.
Me too.
I don't want it. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't do anything good for your mental health.
Yeah.
You look at a life that is not a life on a screen from people who are not showing their life on screen.
Yeah.
It's a caricature of a life. It's a made up life. Some of them, some of them will borrow money from you, but you are having champagne every week on Instagram.
Yeah.
But you're borrowing money from me who doesn't do that on Instagram, But maybe even my real life is better than what I'm seeing on your Instagram, because in my real life, I'm no longer interested in showing what's happening in my real life. So I'm there mentally.
There's been no posting at all, like on the personal side.
On
no
the personal side, I
posting.
post trailers for my show.
Yeah,
I'm
'cause
there now.
I think I concur with you. I think the reason why I'm probably there too, on Facebook, I only use Facebook.
Yeah.
And I post content, and even that is not really moving the needle. So I'm asking myself, well, but there's like a demand for football things from me.
Yeah.
So I still partake in it every now and then. But I'm with you in terms of, I think there is nothing there.
I'm even directing the people, because every now and then I still get requests to partner with brands. I'm directing them to say, why don't you work with the show? I'm still there in the show.
Yeah.
Let's work with the show.
Yeah.
Let's curate this advert you want to do on my Instagram and put it on the podcast rather.
Yeah, I think a conversation needs to be had about social media, our usage of it.
Yeah.
I think if you think about something like a platform like Twitter, I identified it from the jump. I've never been there, but I saw every time people on Facebook are sharing screenshots of what's happening on Twitter, there seems to be some sort of conflict. I don't think that human beings were created to be in a state of perpetual conflict. It's unnatural. We don't live in a bandwidth within which we always have to thrash each other. I don't think that we were here for that purpose. I think that people at an individual level need to find who the fuck they are and why they're here in this world. And I think on Twitter, it incentivizes the worst forms of behavior. And I think that it's detrimental to us as humanity. And I think that it doesn't get us anywhere. I understand people who are still there who are selling videos. For example, Cultr is selling videos on Twitter, although he doesn't sell videos in the sense of you watch to pay you watch as you pay. But what it does is that he's trying to grow his Twitter page to maybe 1 million
and it's working.
Followers.
It's working
by taking clips of
by
shows.
taking clips of
I
our
think
shows.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
it's a symbiotic relationship
because people come and know us and they come and watch our shows.
Exactly, and without these shows, he doesn't have content, for example. So it's a very good symbiotic relationship.
Sure.
I understand people like those who are the reason why they're on Twitter. But do
you think it can be detrimental? I'll make an example of someone who's close to us, because it's somebody who understands that we're saying this from a good place. The Penyo show is doing extremely well, but Penyo is currently hated on Twitter. Hated.
I didn't know that.
Absolutely hated.
Damn.
Because Penyo's opinions are very well thought of. His opinions are striking. Sometimes he doesn't mince his words towards topics. And there's many instances where he presents them like that too on Twitter. Like, I can show you something now. He qualified the statement by saying it's a wild take. For the past 2 days, he's being lambasted. He's probably still trending on Twitter if we go to the trends list for saying that because of the stats of how low black men are unemployment rate, maybe women should go back to being housewives and black men take their jobs. He's being lambasted for that. So what I'm trying to say is, you could be building a good brand such as the Penyo Show, which is a solid brand, good looking, gets the best guests, does the numbers, the algorithm loves it. And then you go and have a Twitter profile, will also get you numbers, but is it the kind of numbers that you want?
I think there's, again, we were not created in this world to exist in a bandwidth where the only thing we share is negative.
Okay.
We were not. Like, it's unnatural to constantly rile people up. And I've had this conversation with Penwell. It's unnatural to exist in such a bandwidth. And I don't think Penwell is reflective. He will know that, okay, in as much as this gets people going and it gets me engagement and we start to have conversations about important topics, but there is a detrimental side to this, because do I always Do I want to go in there whenever I log in and always have to be in a fight? I'm tagged in something that's negative against me. You're not created for that. In order for what to happen. You see that all the time I speak to people, I may not have the best way to convince people about things, but I know I'm right in many things. And most of the time, I always ask people, in order for what to happen, like what's the end game here? There's never really an end game. If you really pursue people's motives, there's never really an end game. And even their motives are very questionable. You're like, so what are you going to get out of it? Other than engagement and being known, what are you going to get out of it? Because being known for what? Being known for saying negative shit about groups of people? Oh, that's dangerous. You shouldn't strive for that as a human being. I don't think that anyone can be created by their God to be that kind of a person where the only thing you mean to people is making them feel shit about themselves.
Perhaps the problem is also, especially for us who are video content creators, is that because in the video we're able to explain something like this and break it down, then even a hot topic will have context and we can sum it up properly so that people see that there's no malice.
They can sometimes they choose for there to be malice.
In a clip, Nkululeko, they choose malice because they take the context completely out. But in a long form video, people most generally will use their brains and realize.
Yeah, generally speaking, the majority. But
the majority.
It just so happens that even in a longer video, this thing is in line with the advent of social media and how people are cultivated to only communicate in negative emotions towards one another.
Sure.
Someone can watch a long video and they can choose to misconstrue something. And sometimes for me, that's frustrating because as I'm communicating, I'm always in my mind something says, explain this further so that you don't get misunderstood. But that's a waste of time. We cannot be communicating to each other in a way where we always have to over-explain things so that we don't come across as though we are being offensive. I think on the face of it, you should know every time you're watching something that, oh, okay, these niggas are just talking really. Like there's a space for people to just talk, like we've just done now, for people to just talk. But I think people, and the audience is conditioned to always consume that negative shit because that's what's gonna pop up on their home screen. Or go to some she's lost weight or whatever. I saw that recently. I saw that,
yeah. She was lambasted.
I
dragged to filth.
I don't even know her, but I saw people on Facebook talking about it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's a new thing now that you guys are walking into, so that you can walk into the new thing tomorrow, and so on and so forth. I think it's a waste of time. I think, besides us being content creators, and I think even to the general public, I think people need to examine their relationships with social media platforms.
Sure.
If you don't get anything out of it, I don't understand why you're still there. And
especially short form content. Guys, short form content is dangerous because the algorithm wants you to gratify people's emotions within the first 6 seconds.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Absolutely.
That is crazy,
You
guys.
can never really ventilate a message sufficiently.
In 6 seconds.
In 6 seconds.
You can't.
Unless you are lambasting people.
Absolutely.
Unless
being rude, being outrageous. Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, no, I think social media it's strange. It's strange to see how people are turning out. Because I'm now starting to ask myself, so are we being consistent? Like when we meet in the street, are you going to be like this? Like even on Facebook it happens, even on YouTube it happens where that's why I have a policy of not reading comments. I don't. Even if someone is complimentary, you treat those two things as imposters. The victory and the loss is the same thing. It doesn't mean anything, so that it doesn't affect you mentally. So you don't read at all, so that you don't read the good things and the bad things. Because my next question will be that, so is it on when we see each other in the streets now? Like, is that it? Because some people will say incendiary shit where you're like, oh, okay, this person wants to kill you then.
Do you not feel like though your genuine audience that has helped you grow is missing out from you by they're suffering from the trolls?
Not exactly, because I've always, even with Itiski, I've always had an unspoken contract with the audience where when there's a match we will shoot and that's it. You're gonna watch. That's the contract that we have.
Okay.
When there's a football game, when Chiefs, Orlando Pirates, and Sundowns are playing, We will shoot the videos. You will see your Junior Kanye. You will see your Tsovila.
And I've done my part. We've done our part.
That's it. That's the contract. We're not breaking any contract.
I hear you.
It's an additional step to take if you want to engage.
Yeah.
But it's not healthy for you.
In fact, you're correct that it's not healthy. I've had guests where a clip probably went out, a trailer, guest realizes the heat is on, they go to YouTube comments, they're replying to comments.
No, don't do that.
As the guest, I was like,
don't do
hectic.
that. Don't do that. I said to Bougie, I said, don't read the comments.
Yeah,
because I knew with Bougie and that situation. In fact, in that situation, I'm with Bougie. We couldn't expand too much.
You helped Bougie, by the way. That interview helped Bougie.
Oh yeah, the charges that been dropped.
Yeah, that interview helped Bougie.
Thank you.
That would not have happened.
Yeah, because it happened like in short succession with each other.
Yeah, short succession with each other, and I can tell you for free that
I don't know what numbers did it do on Twitter, because on Facebook it was on YouTube it was lousy.
Twitter it did.
It was like maybe 20 or 20,000.
Twitter, it still made Bougie be the villain.
Yeah,
it continued made Bougie be the villain, but as Bougie has said, they mediated, right? Which means as the parties involved, somebody went and reflected, it's really not right that Bougie is being made the villain.
Yeah,
Still,
I will never be affected by shit that happens on Twitter.
I don't tweet for the whole year. I don't tweet anymore as well.
Yeah, no,
I love this era. I've got nothing to say to people on Twitter. I'm so sorry. I've got a lot of knowledge, information, things that I've read, things that I've worked on to share on camera with genuine people. Penyo always calls it my tribe. That's my tribe. Genuine people who take their data and spend, I don't know how many gigs of data watching one video. I respect those people.
Absolutely. Shout out to the fans. Like people who really
I respect those
people. Because my beef even with the audience is something similar to what you're saying. Like because there are people who, why is it that you want negative shit to happen before you can even compliment or comment or anything like that? You will never say anything if it was a good conversation. There are times when I've given game to a lot of people in football, in many videos and in many posts, and I'm like, you niggas are not going to do anything about this. I know that there have been football people who are pushing content now who are coming directly as a result of me. I know that. They've told me, they're like, I was inspired to do something because you said this and I watched you do it this and you spoke about money and this and that. And I'm like, I'm glad. But I don't think that there's enough people who listen to something on visual. And this is an era of information where this has never happened before, where people tell you, like, I'm an engineer, I've made this amount of money, this is the pathway that I took. You still have to work, you still have to get out of your bed to go out there, pursue that degree, and work hard enough to build a career for yourself. There is no tree that money grows on.
Yeah.
We can't tell you that go to Joburg Park Station, there will be a tree on the left of the building where you can get money. But I think that the audience is so desensitized, is so conscientized to the idea that they want things that are like, okay, just give me this. And I'm always trying to put myself in a position where, besides the things that I've done, when I was 21, what was I? And I know that when I was 21, I was consuming information. I was always like stimulated to hear people, how did they make money? And I was frustrated. I remember when I bought one of DJ Smooth's books, someone took it. There's a woman who took it. I can't remember who eventually. The point of me buying that book was for me, hopefully understanding how he made his money. But within the first 10, 15 pages, I was like, okay, I'm not seeing this. So I took it. It's signed by Spoo, actually. But I took it, and someone took it. And when someone takes my books, I get offended. But I never got offended because I'm like, damn, I'm trying to get how you made your money. Like, how much money do you have and what do you do in meetings and shit like that? I think this is an era where a lot of people are trying to give information, but it's getting frustrating because all you see are black people still in the same position. Of course, it's not going to happen overnight that people realize suddenly, okay, there's money to be made in certain industries. But whenever you're given information in videos by people who do dope, you should be saying, I'm privileged to hear this information. I'm privileged to see that someone over a 3-year period, they've made 5 million and this is how they made it, something like that. But there is no tree that has money where we can say, go there and take that money. But the information that we're giving out in some of these conversations is for you, for it to inspire and to be helpful.
I'm glad you say it's for it to inspire and for you to take nuggets of how the information fits into what you are trying to build. Because I recently had a conversation with Maple. I don't know if when this comes out, it would have come out on my podcast. And I asked him, what do you think has been your journey to success? And he's like, you know what? I try things, but I also let things be, because I don't know one person who has it figured out and can tell me, I figured it out because I did this and this and this and this. So many people, they were met with opportunity. They were met with either their dad being in a good position at work. They knew someone, there is no pathway, guys. Like, it doesn't exist, a pathway of Uguti, and there is no book out there that can tell you the path that's going to make you guaranteed successful.
There is no
so it's the pieces of information via consuming information like these podcasts that we make and the books that you read that will help you pour into whatever you're trying to build.
Unfortunately, we cannot prostitute ourselves. Like, we're not going to suddenly have people fight here so that we can amuse you for your entertainment, so that you can then share that shit and have a laugh for like 5 minutes and then move on to something else.
I want to digress a bit. Do you think we were lost, though, by being an information-based YouTube platforms? Podcasts.
You have to be very careful how you curate that content, because you can't only be information. Because even the things, if you think about SABC One, for example, there's a variety of things that you could watch on SABC One, but all of them have different views. So Uzalo has the most views because of their time. They're on prime time at 8 p.m. And then Generations are the second most views on SABC One. So those are dramatic stories being told. Sometimes people die, sometimes they come back to life after dying. So for your amusement, for your entertainment. But your entertainment is not everything. But every now and then, maybe in the morning, they'll play something brought to you by SABC Education. Something that is boring as but there is space for that to happen too, because we're not going to always amuse you. And then every now and then they'll play something sports. Every now and then they'll play something music. But all of those things unfortunately have different audiences. Some will get 1 million views, others will get 8 million views, like Uzalo. When there's no load shedding, they usually get 8 to 9 million views. And then Generations always follows with like 7, and Skim Sam 8. It coincides with the entertainment value of their shows and also the time frames. Because if you take Uzalo and put it at 10 p.m., it will have a completely different number. But if it's at 8 p.m. and there's repeats of it, that's how they get their number as well. So I think we need to be very careful in how we curate it. It's important to have conversations. Joe Rogan has survived on conversation. Was this Lex Friedman is surviving on conversation. And that Joe Rogan has the biggest bag, in that he got like $100 million deal, or $200 million deal over 6 years with Spotify exclusively, getting out of YouTube. And that was just surviving on conversation. There is space for us to have conversations, but we have to design them better. We cannot look at ourselves as information channels. There's a reason why the first thing we spoke about was being gay, because I know that people are curious about that. Shit. In an ideal world, I don't even want to talk about that. Like, I want to talk about it if you want to talk about it. We can have a conversation.
Because it's an uncomfortable conversation in many instances. It's sensitive,
I'm not uncomfortable.
For people.
But I don't want it to be my selling point.
Okay.
But it was, because that's the thing that I opened with. And it's frustrating because, y'all want to be entertained all the time. And it's like, there are other things that we can talk about that are actually funny. Sometimes when I was with Urasta, that was very funny, that episode, because I was literally teasing his artwork, and it's funny. But then people want drama, and it's like, nah, not with me. If I have to pivot and do something else, I'll do that. But I do think that we have to work hard. Like, the onus is upon us to work hard to find conversations that matter, that people want to watch. I've always been intrigued by the idea that our people somehow really like the Sangoma and Uktwasa thing, because they really do.
Their numbers, my goodness gracious me.
For me, it's strange. It's like, okay, maybe you have to understand your population.
I have an answer.
Sure.
Why they do. You've said this to me before, that as people, we love to outsource our thinking. Isangoma thinks for you and tells you do this.
Give you solutions.
Life is hard. Life is not easy. Your relationship, you've got a partner. He's cheating on you. He's cheating on you with multiple people. And Isangoma says, I'll give you just this potion for 100 Rand or for 2,000 Rand. Nowadays, these potions are 2,000, 10,000 Rand. And he will never cheat on you again. So we people don't want to do critical thinking. People are just lazy thinkers in most cases. They don't want to sit back and reflect on maybe I should leave this man, and that's the solution.
Yeah, and in most cases, you have to do that.
Right?
As soon as he abuses you,
leave.
Find a way to leave.
Find a way to leave. Some people it's not that easy, but find a way to leave.
Fine. That's what I'm saying. I'm framing
critical thinking, right? Of finding a way. People don't want to do that. So, and it's also superficial. Well, the English is running away. Supernatural. Yeah. So
there's a nyoka there and there's lightning.
Entertainment sometimes it's got an entertainment value because the supernatural element is, oh my gosh, these things really happen. We all of us know somebody in our townships where we suspect to go to 12. And it's the story is like, we've never seen evidence, but we suspect.
So for me, I agree with you totally that that's the mindset and perhaps the appeal to that kind of content. But for me, I've always thought, to what end? At what point does it not? So you're a consistent consumer of this information. How many stories can you be told about inyoka until you are done being told stories about inyoka? Kunosisi lana indoda yazothola inyoka lana usisi,
and it's Zulu YouTube. Zulu YouTube is thriving on that.
Your language. And it's bruh, how many stories that are not true can you tell about it? Because
inyoka, I'm boys.
Yes. The rats.
Yes.
And the lightning stories and back to sender. Ne? So how many times can that be told to you before you because there's a point where I'm very, very grateful that I'm designed this way. There's a point where if something is being said to me and I've heard it enough times, maybe 5 times, oh, okay, this thing doesn't move the dial for me. I've heard it. Maybe the first time around it wasn't. It's same with prison stories.
How many can you be told?
Yeah, the prison stories for me are different human beings telling the same thing, the same experience.
It's all the same experience.
It might be a slight variation. So it's great to tell prison stories. I think the Agenda Network does a great job of doing that. But for me as a consumer, and I watch them on Facebook, but I watch them less in 2023 than I was in 2021.
Because I need a break from that.
Exactly, because you can't be consuming that all the time. You're not existing in a bandwidth where negative information should be fed to you. Bad things happening to people should be fed to you. You can't be watching horror movies all the time. Something wrong is going to happen.
Sure.
So I always wonder with the audience, how many times can these people...
So another thing, Nkululeko, with Izangoma stories thriving is the money celebrity element to it that has, I wouldn't say suddenly happened, but it's predominant now. You become a celebrity as Izangoma.
Yes.
It's another way where people who perhaps had no musical, artistic talent, broadcasting talent that would make them ordinarily be a celebrity, they found TikTok that's going to make them a celebrity.
Yeah.
Furthermore, they never in their lives thought they could walk into a Gucci shop in Diamond Walk. Yeah. And these consultations are making them enough money to buy a Range Rover. Oh my gosh. Everybody wants that.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible insight into that. I'm still stuck on how many of these stories can you be told before you're oh, okay, I get this. It's so in music, there's a musical genre called Ispaza. Mm-hmm. It comes from my area, Western Cape, and I think people from the Eastern Cape can claim it as well. It's Cultr rap. There's a point where we were proud of these guys when they were coming up in the 2000s, right? And we were hearing these stories, and there were gory stories, inspiring stories, things that happened to them. There's a beat, and there's you rhyming to the beat, and whatever you say on that beat is reliant on your artistic expression. How can you get us hooked into the story that you are telling? And then there's a point where they keep on saying the same things. So I was poor. My parents said I need to go to work, and eventually I had no place to stay, and this is why I'm rapping. So in many of their songs, that theme was always consistent. Now there's only so many times you can do that in songs. Although it's different use, it's 20 different rappers or 30 different rappers with different variations, different beats. But if the storyline is always the same, then there's an audience that you're limiting yourself to, which is people with low IQs. They will be entertained by that. But there's a certain kind of audience where you're Aibo, Lomchitalo, this thing he told us, this guy told us this yesterday. Now you're also telling us this. It's like there is no nuanced stories that these guys could tell because most of them, they were 19 years old, 24 years old. They hadn't really experienced life.
Yeah.
So they can't even imagine themselves being in China and write a very interesting story about how they were arrested in China in a song. Although you have your poetic license to write a fake story because you are a musician, an artist, but they were always limiting it to their limited experiences
Sure.
of being broke. You're going to be broke if you're in a township, of course. And your parents are not going to want you to be a rapper. But that's the reason why you are a rapper, because like you feel like you are rebellious. So that's that element as well. With the music, like there's only so many times you're gonna tell the story before. After 2 years, people feel like these stories are done. It's a fad. It's like the same thing that happens with brands. That there's a point in 1996, 7, 8, 9 where people are obsessed with hush puppies.
Yeah.
I think it's a brand. It's a shoe brand, but they do other things as well. For some reason, it becomes a fad amongst the youth. Like it becomes a fashion accessory that they like. But then, and all of a sudden, there was a high demand. Over 100 million people wanting to buy hush puppies globally, and they were not ready for it. But they found a way to distribute these clothes, these shoes, right? But hush puppy cannot sustain the level of revenue over time and market share if they don't think like Nike. If you think about Nike, you never really see the same design every year. If Hush Puppy are only selling that shoe, and then maybe the next shoe that they're selling in the next season, in autumn, is an ugly shoe because they were not ready for that audience, then they die off. Same with the Dr. Martens. If you remember, there's a boot called the Dr. Martens.
Yes.
And it was a fad also in the late 90s. They could have pivoted and did something else. They could have moved into sneakers. They could have moved into something else, which was more appealing. It would make them hundreds of millions over a 20-year period. But because they were not ready, they kept on producing the same shoe, and it dies. The fad dies because it's a thing that is fascinating 18-year-olds. By the time that they're 19, they've moved on to something else. It's the same thing that they do with music, that they are obsessed with gqom, and all of a sudden Amapiano comes, they're obsessed with that, and then they will move on to something else, just as they moved on from Kwaito, for example. So for me, I always look at it from that perspective that you're doing this. I'm still curious about it, this thing, Yobungoma, this topic, that people are obsessed with it. But how many stories can you tell about that shit? So if you say to me, for example, you're doing a visual demonstration, this is how you make a concoction, you can send it back to the other one, but back to sender. Okay. You do this now today, and you get 100,000 people watching because they're very popular. How many other things can you potentially do in this thing of yours? Because it's limited. You can do that, or you can do ikorobela to Lisa Umuntu, how to concoct a lightning. But these demonstration videos, there's going to be a point where there is a limited amount of things that you can teach people. There's a limited amount of demonstrations you can do before they'll be like, I've seen everything you can show me.
Perhaps they know that, hence, while the hype is still around it, let me take out all my big guns of showing all these things that I can do so that I build an audience. And then, I don't know, reintroduce something else to my audience once I have an audience. I guess it's a strategy. Same thing with podcasts. A lot of people have podcasts. People who have existing audiences from other spheres of life are trying to get into podcasting.
I mean, you can talk to different people with podcasting. That's the appeal to it. Like, you will always be a different guest. Like even with your channel, what you're doing greatly is that you have a different face to it. So there isn't a finite resource in there. It's an infinite resource. And maybe after a year, you can even recycle these people because new things have happened to them in their lives. So, there's leeway, there's movement there. I think maybe the limitation with us in this visual product that we're selling on YouTube is that some of the conversations are stale. What Somizi Mhlongo says in your podcast, his story is the same in Mac's podcast and the panel show. So that's why I've always tried to avoid inviting people that have been seen elsewhere because their life story.
But the algorithm wants that. That's another thing we're fighting.
Yeah, it's weird because their life story is the same. I mean, I want to get myself in a place where I can talk to anyone. Yes, I want to talk to politicians, musicians, and whoever. But I want to also talk to interesting people about things that people don't know, introduce a topic, and I want people to be interested in that shit because I think the conversation we're having is interesting because we're not limiting it to your career or my career. We're talking about broad things.
I'm half and half though in saying that if you have somebody and we like if the person rotates podcasts, I know it can be annoying because their life story is the same.
It's the same story.
But the beauty of what we do, Nkululeko, and the reason some of us have this brotherhood where we support one another is because we're actually not doing it the same way.
Yeah. Obviously.
It doesn't sound the same.
I always intentionally
which is
try to
beautiful.
It's
beautiful that we all don't sound the same.
As soon as I hear that someone was on a different platform, I'm not going to ask them about their life.
Yeah.
Because I know that someone else who's an interviewer will just walk into the trap.
Yeah.
They're just going to ask about their life.
Yeah.
Now imagine, because you have to respect the audience. Imagine someone who really wants to support this industry by watching all the time and liking and commenting. You are doing a disservice to this person if you're going to make this person rehash that story. You know, you find different ways. Like if you look at some of the stuff that I've done, for example, Skim GP, they called me because I have a good relationship with them. They've invited me to prison. They called me. I didn't know that they were on MacG originally. You know, and they told me like, "Yo, we're available. Do you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool," because I like those guys. Yeah, I like Soli. I like Skim GP. So they're cool people. They've been cool to me. So we do that, but then maybe I figure it out once they get here that they've been to MacG and they've been to David Mashabela. And I was like, okay. But then fortunately, because I'm a curious person and I'm a natural interviewer who's done so many of these interviews in football.
You will always find an angle.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I was like, okay, let's do Thabo Baxter because I was like
the
popping
which
story.
Was brilliant. Yeah,
well, Thabo Baxter, prisons and whatever.
Yeah.
And then Oscar Pistorius is also in prison because you're a prisoner. Because I don't want him to rehash his story. Because he's told it at MacG, he's told it at
even on his own platform, he's probably told it.
Absolutely. So it's like you're stretching the limitation of your the patience of your audience by doing that. Let me close off by talking about your platform, engineer your life.
Yes.
There are conversations that you're having, and predominantly I've seen that it's women guests for the most part. There's a great improvement this year versus last year as well. What are you tweaking? What are you changing? What are you learning as you go along in this journey? Where are you now even in subscribers?
I think we're on 12,000.
That's great.
And that's only happened in the past 4 months. We were on like 6 for the longest time.
Yeah.
So I think obviously the quality of episodes. I remember I called you asking you for a list of things to buy, to change microphones, all this, that. So I bought all those things.
Yeah, you did great. Like because I remember I spoke to you when I was listening to one episode and there was a problem with sound.
Yes.
I'm like, damn, like you challenging your audience here.
Yeah.
Because it's easy for people to drop off. If there's a sound problem.
I fully agree. Yeah. So it did that. Got the team to really see that I'm investing. So if you can't F this up now, like you can see I'm buying the equipment and you guys want to keep your jobs and let's build. More than anything we're building. I think the beauty of it is that the people that I'm working with love what we're doing. They are unemployed after graduates. So in a country where people go to AFTA and pay 400,000 over the 3 years to get this degree only for them to not find work.
Yeah.
The least I could do is give them this platform, and they've brought in expertise that I didn't know anything about. I'm just an engineer. I work with numbers and maths, and I sit in board meetings and all of that. So that's what I've done with the platform, and my focus now has been the content and broadcasting. Yeah. So now that I've alleviated every other stress, the teething pains, and finding myself and all of that, we're flowing.
I remember when you did Baby Cele.
Yes.
I saw a couple of articles spawning out of that.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, it's about time because there's this relationship that we have with websites.
Yes.
About Times Live,
yes.
Citizen, News 24. Like, I know, like, if I'm doing someone and I get a dope headline, and I think what they're doing, and this is very lazy, but, well, it eventually benefits us, it benefits them, and all three of us. What they're doing is, because it's weird, because Twitter has become a place where the journalists are looking for news. So they will look at Cultr.
Yes.
And Cultr will here's the thing that happens, but it's not it's unspoken.
Yes.
It's not coordinated.
Yeah.
So Cultr will look for content for his own Twitter page.
Yes.
Right? This kind of conversation.
Yes.
And other kinds of conversations. Yes. From DJ Spoo, from MacG, for everyone, from Penwell Show, from everyone, from yourself. Right? And then as a result of that, the journalists, they are just hopping on Twitter and they see something, they're like, ooh.
That has numbers. That's clearly going to trend. Yeah.
If I write the same story from that,
Yes.
that's going to trend. And then they write, okay, this girl from Idols regrets winning the Idols. And that's the headline, right? And even me, when I was speaking to her, that's one of the things I would have loved to get out of her. Or if I'm speaking to Kaifa Semenya and he's talking about the AKA situation, I know that it will generate articles, but it doesn't even really move the needle that much, because if you look at the analytics, it doesn't give you more than 5,000.
Yeah.
If it's on 70,000 views, only 3,000 will come from
the article.
From the article, or
and not just that article, from all the articles, but it's multiple articles that come out of it.
From all of those.
Even the journalists are lazy. When Times Live writes, the other one's now gonna go take Times Live article. It's like,
absolutely,
even the wording is reading the same.
It's the same thing. So we have a very weird relationship. Although, to a point, I mean, it's content. It's the way in which news are generated. Anyways, what I would say to that is, for those people, if we're lucky enough to have these journalists who are watching at this point of this video, is that just go. If so, you've now figured out that Engineer Your Life has
good guests,
incredible guests, who share stories openly.
Yeah.
Then, wouldn't it be lovely then for you to go there every week? Now that you've benefited from it, include it as part of things that you follow.
Yeah.
Because if you're not being shared by Colbert, they are not going to see it, then they're not going to write about it. But then when they see it on Colbert, they are going to write about it and they're going to benefit from it. So, and the last thing, I will never do it as well, because I have other things that are more important to do. I'm not going to cultivate relationships with journalists. I'm not going to say to them, I'm giving you 5,000, write stories all the time or something. That happens actually.
Are you serious?
Where
people with funding probably do that, for their brands.
Even normal people, because they want to be seen and they want to be known, they're like, okay, cool, I'm starting this thing. I have to cultivate a relationship with like different journalists and different Twitter people, influencers, and then you pay. In some instances, I'm not going to do that. You've already taken the AKA thing. It worked for you. You got your 10,000 clicks or 100,000 clicks on your article. Clearly, it should say to you that this is a place for me to always, every now and then, hop on and write whatever is interesting. Because the other thing is that they miss everything else. Because what they're doing is watch that 2-minute clip from Colbert, and they miss everything else. And they are so lazy that they don't even go to the original video, and sometimes they don't even embed the original video. They don't put it on the article so that people could click on it. They just gain the views and the clicks for themselves.
I've emailed a journalist who did that. She stopped writing about me. It's okay, but she will know. I emailed the journalist and said, you will embed my work. It takes a lot of work, money, effort to do this.
Costs money.
For you to write a lovely article that's going to gain you clicks, and the least you can do is embed.
Yeah, and it helps them in their career, because I've been a manager in that space.
Yeah.
It helps them in their career, because their KPAs, one of the KPA, key performance area, is your views or your clicks or your link. So it helps them. Like if they get 500,000 clicks on their total articles that they wrote, because some of them write 12 articles per day.
Yes.
If it's a slow day, they could write 8 articles per day, depending on company to company. But that's the idea. Like what's trending, what's popping, 8 articles per day. And then from that, if they can generate 10,000 on each, sometimes it trends, then they generate 100,000 views on each article. The expectation is that by the end of the month, for your 5 days worth of work every week, which is 20 days worth of work in a month, from that, we expect that you give us 1 million, which is reasonable. It's a reasonable expectation if it's a big platform. Because already you work at Times Live. It's already Times Live. For example, we don't have to build anything. It's already News 24 or Media 24. We don't have to build anything. There is an audience.
That's waiting for the information.
There are 3 million people who are always here every day. So to speak, I think Media 24 does that number, around that number, 1, 2, 3 million per day of page views. So that's their KPA. So there is something that they gain from us. I think ideally you just want them to be, maybe the way in which the workplace is created, and now that I think about it further, is that it doesn't even allow them to to literally
Sit
spend
there and
an
watch.
hour and watch 2 hours worth of something. So they take the shortcut of taking what Cultr is. So that's the influence of Cultr or Chris Excel or whoever shares video clips where they take articles from, But back to your platform, what are frustrations and some of the milestones this year? Some of the things that you're able to do this year that you're happy about, and some of the things that you still struggle with.
For some reason, my platform has become a place where the Real Housewives of Durban want to come to, and all their PR teams contact us. Which is beautiful because it's something that is it's relevant. It does extremely well, and I'm able to navigate them because it's something that I watch. One of the milestones is the lady who was kicked out of the show in the previous season, Mabusi. So she had been spoken about by the other housewives in the current season, lambasted her, spoke badly about her. And the first time she ever commented on it was on my show. So it was like her speak out.
Yeah.
So that video, I think, is 102,000 views.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope.
So that was one of the milestones.
Even getting to 2 times where you were, like to double the number, like 6,000 on 12,000. That's incredible.
Yeah, in over like 6 months.
Yeah, to have achieved that in half the time versus last year.
Definitely. So it's
the limitation initially for me when I got there, and I told you when you flew me to Durban, was that you have a limited number of people you could interview possibly.
So
because you were there.
Remember you told me that? For the longest time it used to haunt me. It doesn't anymore. Do you know why? Now I trust the scale of what I can get out of a person.
Oh yeah.
No matter who you bring, because now the audience is starting to be a good, solid audience, right?
That's the game.
That's what you were saying.
Yeah, that's
the game is you start building with bringing famous people, then you start testing the audience and saying, this is a not famous person, but listen to the story. Listen to the story.
Yeah.
And we have return viewers who are here to listen to the story and who are believers of the show, and people who've even subscribed as members, right?
Yeah.
Because they believe in the work. And even now, I'm finding that because there's 10 podcasts in Joburg, you guys are fighting for guests. So it's thinking and if it's not like you guys have an abundance of guests who are willing to come into your platforms. It's the same story. It is
a larger number because Joburg is like
it's the haven for everything.
Yeah, I would rather be in Cape Town. I don't like being here. Yeah. But for the purpose of being in the entertainment industry and being in sports as well, you have to be here. But I love your perspective on it in that
there's still an edge though, Nkululeko, as well, that angina pressure ngingedwa. I keep on asking why are German people not opening podcasts? Angina pressure. When I even get emails that I ignore now when people want to launch songs or PR people email me. So now I can even have choice of guests, something that I couldn't have 6 months ago.
No,
because I'm the only one, and Utoti Artist Yabo is based there.
I think there's
that politician is based there.
There's merit to what you're saying, but there's also merit to the idea. There's a reason why people move from Atlanta to New York.
Sure.
Really. Atlanta is a bad example because it's a hub of, there's enough record labels and radio stations in Atlanta, but like a small state to go to LA or to go to New York or go to Atlanta if they want to be in music. Like I think you are a creative person and there are people that you would be reading about in the news, and the first thing you have to do is where is this person? Because it happens to me too and everyone else.
Where is this person? I need to interview this person.
Yeah, like literally you have this urge of like, damn, I want to do that interview. But then the first barrier is where the person is. Yeah.
I can tell you the downside.
Yeah.
With the location, it's not all rosy, but it's definitely in a good place right now, and I'm still very content. Perhaps I'll reach a point where I will feel my growth has peaked and it needs to be Joburg, but for now it hasn't. Because we are able to navigate. For example, the next episode I'm going to release is Vuyo Zungula. He travels to Durban a lot.
Shout out to Vuyo.
Beautiful, amazing person. He travels to Durban a lot. So we take advantage of those things. Now, you see, with the social media, my personal brand growing, even when my producer DMs a big person, they actually reply and say, I'll be in Durban on this day. We will interview then. Because the brand is being built. It's solidifying.
Yeah, I think once you get over the part of not being known, I remember when I was a young journalist in football, I used to hate this, but I think a lot of young journalists go through it. When I was a young journalist in football, you would find that the person doesn't avail themselves.
Because they don't know you.
Yeah. Of course, you're still young and they don't know who the f*** you are. But they will be on Metro FM later tonight. And you're like,
yes.
You nigga, like now,
yes.
I don't have to do that. Like, it's important to have that phase where you're building. Like I literally looked at my contact list and I always refer back to this and I'm like, it's been 1,000 cell phone numbers. Over
Yeah.
1,000
Yeah.
cell phone numbers in football. I'm like, damn, I'm fucking experienced. Like I've spoken to this many people because every
Yeah.
number I would call is a number that I would put in my contact list. So it's the same happens in podcasts sometimes that, hi, this is Nkululeko from Itiski TV. I know I get your attention.
Kulule, I love that you say that. For example, the social media strategy for the show. That's why for me, the social media is just about the show now. Because if I have over 10 videos that have a minimum of 150,000 views, you best believe people know who I am.
Yeah. And they wanna come through.
And they want to come through.
Yeah,
You know,
they can
I've got
see
one that's on almost 1 million. Every celebrity in this country has seen that video. I can guarantee you.
Yeah, because they can see that there's value to it.
They see.
There's the one other thing that I've picked up is, and I've always said this about celebrities because I don't trust them. The celebrities that are moving into podcasting, I've always been suspicious of them because I understood that they're gonna fuck up the game in the same way that they fucked up TV for young kids.
Yeah.
Young kids could no longer get into TV anymore because the celebrities found ways where they could find their friends, give them their jobs.
Move from this show to this show, this show,
move around.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right? I think this thing of, so with podcasts, if I can interview you and you get 100,000 views, it's helpful for you. It's helpful for me too. There's no need for anyone to pay anyone there because you have your message. You want to spread their cameras and people being paid to shoot us and edit us. That's a useful relationship to be had. What's happening now is some celebrities are introducing the idea of money when it comes to bringing in guests. Now, I've always, as a matter of principle, if someone wants to call that shit transport, you could cover that. If they want $200 for transport or $500 for Uber, it's understandable that you're taking this person out of their way to come here. But do they do that when they are trying to release their song on SABC One? The reverse happens actually on SABC.
They'll go all out.
They pay payola.
Yeah.
On big platforms so that their songs can be played. So it doesn't make sense for them to demand money from us
as podcasters.
But I'm telling you now,
it's getting there.
It's not getting there. It's there because I've spoken to people that have already been on other platforms and they're like, no, Spanbani gave me 4,000. I'm like, no, but when you niggas want to sell your music or your shows, even people from Netflix, when they have shows like Oshaka Ilembe, for example, if they wanted to promote it here, they're not going to pay me, but they're going to actively go out of their way to call me to say, we have this actor or this actress, we want to promote Shaka Ilembe, do you want to do it? Because they understand that they're spreading the message to this platform and other bigger platforms. Now, we cannot fuck up the game for kids the same way that the celebrities did on TV. We can no longer have kids on TV now. They just gave up on it, you know, and that's why some kids...
They're all on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly, they do TikTok and they do this because it's like, you guys, I could no longer dream of being Queen Bee on SABC One.
Yeah.
Because there's like multiple instances where super celebrities are being preferred over me as a young talent. Now, please, big celebrities, come into the space of YouTube, but don't fuck up this game for these kids because these kids cannot afford 2,000 to pay people who, when they are selling their music, they pay Channel O so that their music video is slotted there on prime time. So that doesn't even make sense. So that's one of the things like you may have to face, or you could be facing if you were here, this side in Joburg, that the guests that you're trying to get to come to your platform are going to ask you money. Yeah, well, we shouldn't normalize that. We should always be fighting for the kids. That if you normalize that shit, that means these kids will never have big interviews. They will never have big people coming to their platforms because they want to be paid money. I'm tired of talking.
Yeah, Asiege. In closing, I was once on 0 subscribers, and it's people who give us a chance.
Yeah.
That make us be where we are. So yeah, let's not ruin the game for others by paying.
It's an ongoing struggle. Thank you so much for coming through. You sent me a message to have this conversation, and I was like, yeah, let's go, because we've had so many cancellations, like people coming, and then on their way not coming through, or people being here, which was hilarious. She was scared when someone was here, and I had to tell them.
You thought it was going to be.
I kept on saying, I am not a threat to you, but I was very confrontational. They were here. I'm not a threat to you, but I think you're being disingenuous. Why are you being defensive? And why are you spreading a message of hate? Why, like some shit like that. But I was really like, my aggro voice was, and my expression was like maybe 100 times what I am now. But it was never going to get violent. But I had to make that point across to say, I'm not scared of you. You are here. You are a person. I'm a person. I am not a threat to you. I made it very specific. But I said, why can't we have an engagement? Like me and you, we spoke about gays and lesbians and transgenders. You agreed and disagreed in some points. And that's how we engage as human beings. We can never be made to say being gay is wrong and all of us believe that, or being gay is right, or being heterosexual is right. All of us have to agree. We have to have an engagement about that. So thank you very much for coming through.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much to everyone who's watching us.